everyone, and welcome to another video. These are my favorite videos to film, so I'm so excited that it's another month that's wrapped up that I can chat about all the books I read because I love these videos so much. So welcome to my July reading recap. Okay, so the first book I read is none other than Love in Other Words, which I know this book. I don't know why it's not focusing very well. Love in Other Words, which I know is a fan fave, okay? Like everyone I watch on YouTube, all my friends love this book. So I was like, I have to read it. And I read Every Summer After last month, and everyone was telling me like Every Summer After is exactly like Love in Other Words. So I was like, okay, if I loved Every Summer After, then I definitely have to give this a go. And here's my thoughts. Okay, I love this book. I gave it 4 stars and it was really cute. But I do think because I read Every Summer After, it kind of ruined this book for me because I liked that one more than this, and they're so similar other than like the little twist at the end that I just like the twist in the end in Every Summer After more than this one. This is basically about Macy and Elliot, who were friends at their cottage. So again, cottage romance friends, next door neighbors, very similar to the book Every Summer After. And it's about their little childhood first love romance. So childhood to lovers, first love romance, and also rekindled romance, so second chance. And the twist that comes at the end when you realize why they broke apart. So it's them coming together years later and meeting up again, and you're slowly finding out why they broke apart, and you're getting a present day dialogue as well as the past dialogue of when they were kids. So very similar. And it's really cute. I love the story about Macy and Elliot, like how they met, like their little romance at the cottage, that cottage feel. And also they're both book lovers, which makes this really fun. So you're reading like about them loving books. Like they have a little banter about, they say like your favorite word, and they'll be like, hey, what's your favorite word today? And then the one person will say it and then the other person will say it. And typically their favorite word that day like kind of falls in line with how they're feeling. So it's like a little hint as to how they're feeling to the other person. So it's really cute. But I will say the twist at the end was, without giving it away, just like unrealistic to me. Like I feel like it was too much of an avalanche. Like there's a little bit of an avalanche given and then a huge avalanche of a twist that came, and I was like, this is just too much and just too like coincidence, you know? Like this terrible thing happened to her, and then that same night this terrible thing happened to her. I was like, ugh, a little too much. Like I would have loved, if you know, you know, like if you've read this book, I would have loved if that first twist of like what happens with Elliot was the only reason why they broke apart. I didn't appreciate the second twist that had to do with her father. I thought that was just too far and made the whole story a bit cheesy and unrealistic and a little bit more of like movie style dramaticism. So I really wish it was like just what happened with her and Elliot, which drove them apart, and then her like coming back and realizing the true story with Elliot, what actually happened at that party, etc, etc. I think that would have been perfect. It would have been the perfect amount of like dramatic but not like too out of there. So that's why I didn't love it, because I found like in Every Summer After we had that like little twist that was like realistic, especially for what age they were. I was like, hey, that makes sense. Like at that age this would be something that I could see driving two people apart. But this one I'm like, okay, that's just too much. It's just too much. I really hope that you can hear the lawnmower outside. I'm trying to film this and it's a weekend, a long weekend, so everyone's mowing their lawn, so hopefully you can hear that. But I really want to film right now, so maybe it'll give you a little summer nostalgic feel hearing the lawnmower outside. That's what I'm hoping, because I really just want to film this right now, so hopefully it doesn't bother you too much if you can hear it. So we're gonna continue. The next book I listened to on an audiobook, and I'll pop it over here, and it is The Book of Joy. The Book of Joy, Losing Happiness in a Changing World, or Lasting Happiness in a Changing World. Wow, I cannot get this right. It is called The Book of Joy, Lasting Happiness in a Changing World, and I freaking loved it. Like 5 out of 5. I am not reading any other self-help books because this one is like the epitome of self-help books. Like it was so good, and I will recommend it to anyone ever. I loved it so much. I just loved it so much, and I feel like there was a couple things I loved. One, I loved Douglas Carton, which is the translator, I guess, of the story. So he is like a journalist who went to the temple where Dalai Lama and Tutu is, and they were communicating, and he is telling the story of what they're teaching, essentially. And the way he depicts the story with like dialogue and descriptions of how he felt as well, and how it resonated with his life, but also then going back to the dialogue, it was really good. And in an audiobook version as well, I highly recommend it because you're getting 3 different voices instead of one voice trying to pretend like 3 voices, and it just felt like you were in the room having a conversation with them, which was so powerful. Essentially, it's basically just like 2 great spiritual leaders giving their insight on how to find joy in an ever-changing, difficult life. And I felt like it really resonated with what's happened over these last 2 years. Just being able to really find joy and find happiness in your life when things just kind of hit the fan, and hit the fan in a way that is uncontrollable. Like, you can't always control what happens in life, and being able to still like find the joys within life is really powerful. One of their biggest message is you can really find joy by caring for others, by giving to others. Provides joy to yourself, but not only to yourself, to others, and as a community, this is how we can really like develop and grow. I love too that the journalist or the author of this is also kind of bringing out like questions that would come from us listening to the story. Like, if someone told me I have to give more empathy, like, and I will feel more joy, I would be like, well, what about the people who give and give and give so much that then they're exhausted? Or what about that theory or like opinion of feeling so much empathy and feeling so much desire to change that it becomes overwhelming? Like, you as one person can't change it all, even though you really want to. And those little questions are popped into this book, and the spiritual leaders are helping to like break them down and explain the learnings, and it's just really powerful. And the story is broken down into, I think it's like 7 different specific learnings, whether it's like gratitude, and then like giving, and then just like different areas of our life that can cause pain or cause change, and like how we can deal with them, or how, you know, that empathy that it always kind of circles back to can really provide that joy back into your life. Anyways, I could just go on for days about how I felt about this book, but I loved it, and I think it gives such a powerful description of self-healing, I guess. So highly recommend it if you're looking for that style book. But I feel like it really, you have to come to it at a time that you are drawn to it. It won't resonate the same way if you're not coming to the book in a way that you're drawn to it. On to the 3rd book I read in July, which was The Wife Between Us. This was a fun little thriller, and it had my jaw dropping. It had really good twists in it. It kind of is similar to like Girl on the Train and all those kind of books where it's like a psychological thriller where you're like, is the main character crazy, or does she have a sort of truth to her? And you're kind of going back and forth between that the entire time. So the main character in this book is newly divorced. She was married to a guy that basically gave her everything, like riches, huge house, like anything she wanted, but she then became kind of controlled by him, I want to say. And anyways, recently she got divorced, and the new girl that's in his next to become wife, she is going to her and trying to warn her about this guy. And you're curious as to whether she is kind of crazy or if the guy that she was married to is crazy. And that's all I'm going to tell you, because it very much changes halfway through the book, and the point of view that you thought was the whole point of view, the whole first half of the book, is completely switched on its head in the second half of the book. So it is so good, and I highly recommend. Yeah, if you're like into psychological thrillers, then this is definitely a really fun one to go to. Next book I read was The Book of Hope, a survival guide for trying times. The reason I gravitated to this book next is because it is also narrated and written by that journalist Douglas again, and it's done the same way as The Book of Joy, which he is chatting to her in a room, and they're kind of like narrating while also him providing his own point of view as an author the entire time. So I have found a new appreciation for him. He's super cool. I just thought his stuff was really interesting. I don't know anything else about him other than these two books, but they were really good. And what was kind of fun, if you listen to the audiobook, is that Jane is actually talking in it, which is cool. So you get to actually hear Jane. And if you know Jane, like her voice as she's aged has kind of become a little bit difficult. So it's kind of fun. He talks about that at the beginning of the book, but she'll like drink like scotch just to kind of like calm her throat so she can chat. Anyways, it's really cute. But she talks all about, in this novel, how to find hope, or why we should keep hope in hard times, and why, from especially her point of view of the environment, how we need to keep hope in order to, you know, change the environment for the better one day. And that hope isn't necessarily a losing opinion, but something that can really drive us together for change. And it was really enlightening. I really enjoyed listening to Jane's initial story too, of how her research went initially with the chimpanzees. If you know anything about Jane, her story is just like extremely fascinating, but I learned a lot more about her through this book than ever before. I had no idea that Jane came from being a secretary to doing research and working with these chimpanzees. Like, she didn't like do anything around that or research that brought her to that position. She was just in the right place with the right people, and just super passionate that they were like, yep, let's send you into the field because you might see something that the researchers don't, because they'll give up. And she talks about how her hope for getting these chimpanzees to interact with her kind of like kept her going, and she just continues to keep that hope for other areas in life and trying times, such as the environment crisis and all of that. So really fascinating story. If you're really into environmental science, then you might love it. But again, audiobook I highly recommend, because the audio of like listening to Jane and then listening to Douglas and that interaction, as well as him bringing in like, okay, you do talk about hope, but what about the times that, you know, you hope so deeply but you feel as like a singular person it won't change anything? Or he brings up those items again, and she kind of like depicts them and breaks them down and what she felt. So again, highly recommend. It's a great book. The next book I read was Summerland by Ellen, what's her name? Ellen Hilberand? She's a very popular author, and this is the first book I've ever read by her. I don't know how I feel, okay? Sorry, cut off there. I halfway through was like, okay, I really want this book to speed along and be done. But then when I was done the book, I was like, wow, the character development in this novel, the breakdown of every single character involved with the story was so well done, sometimes very repetitive, which is why it was kind of over it halfway through. But like, no, I have never come into an author that had spent so much time on each character over the same story. So it was really interesting in that sense. Basically, what happens in the story is it takes place in Nantucket, which I guess all of her stories do, and the main, well, there's a couple main characters, so I guess there's not really a main character, but Penny has another sibling, and her and her brother in a car after a party with their two friends, Penny's boyfriend Jake and then her other friend, and they're all in a car after a party. Penny was going crazy, lost, like was really mad, was driving super fast, and they all get in a huge crash, and Penny dies, but the rest of them survive, and her brother is kind of injured. This isn't a spoiler, it happens right at the beginning, and the story takes part in finding out kind of what happened to Penny. Why was she mad? Why did she drive so quickly? Like, why did this crash happen in the first place? And then we also dive into all of the character, or all of the different people in that car with her. One of them has traumatic experiences with alcohol. One of them has traumatic experiences with an injury that never lets him be an athlete again. One of them is like her boyfriend, who has to suffer from that grief and loss. One of them is the brother who has to suffer from that grief and loss. We suffer through the grief and loss through her mother as well. It's just so many different characters, so many different moving parts, and we get the moving parts of each character. And what they're going through during this time, and how they're dealing with grief, how they're dealing with their own traumatic experiences. All of them, I swear, all of the characters could have their own novel. Like, they all are going through something so dramatic that they all could have their own book. And I think that's kind of the fun thing about this author, is that she's giving you so many storylines to go off at the same time that all, again, are under the same head of like, Penny died and we're grieving, but we all have our own traumatic items that are happening that could have kind of caused Penny to die, but also we shouldn't blame ourselves, is kind of the overlying head of the story. So it was really fascinating, but I will say I'm not sure I will pick up another one of her books in quite a long time, because she just is painstakingly descriptive about everything and everyone. And like, she would go through one character and talk about like, oh, this is what happened and this is how I dealt with it, and then she'd go to the next character's point of view, and they would kind of go through the same process before going into their own individual story. And I'm like, okay, we get it. Like, you know, for instance, this one scene really killed me. The mother was going through this one daughter's room trying to find something, because the daughter had recently done something that was not, like, I'll just say it, she stole alcohol from someone's house when she was doing lawn care. So the mom was like, okay, something's up with my daughter. I need to search her room. I typically wouldn't search her room, but I'm gonna find something. She's cleaning the girl's room, and I swear to you not, 5 pages of this book was her describing the daughter's room as she's cleaning it. And the only place she does not clean in this entire room, I mean 5 pages, okay? 5 pages of being like, I was looking through her like side wardrobe, and she has like this book that she had when she was a kid, and like describing. I was like, oh my god, can we get over this? 5 pages of describing this girl's room, and she didn't find the one thing that we as readers knew was in the room and knew where it was, and that was the only place that she didn't look. I was like, oh my god, this is making me cringe so much. Like, just go into the closet, you know? And it didn't happen. So the descriptions in this book were great at times, but also agonizing at other times, where I was like, let's get to the point here. Like, this book could be so fun, so fast-paced if we just like moved it a little bit quicker. So if I was an editor, which I definitely am not, that's what I would have said. So yeah, like, I gave it a 3 stars overall. because I liked the story, I liked all of the different characters, I liked that it was so well dynamically built, but like we could have made it so fast-paced, so like Colleen Hoover-esque, where like I don't need to know every description, I just want to feel the juice, the story, the turns, the dips. But it was very well described. The last book I read in July was Wish You Were Here by Renee Carlino. I did a little reading vlog about this book, so that'll be posted soon. But I loved it, and Renee Carlino is definitely one of my new favorite authors. Well, she's not new because she created a book called Before We're Strangers, which was my favorite book so far this year. And I don't know why I didn't pick up another book by her until now. But I also loved this book. Wish You Were Here was amazing. And I'm also picking up another book, like I'm currently reading another book by her that will be in my August reads because I'm almost done it, but I haven't finished it yet. It's already August, so I'm not gonna talk about it here, but it is also so good. Like I just love this author. She is so good because she gives like great descriptions. It's still fast paced and her stories are just always like, the characters always have such a dynamic to them that I love reading. I love instant love, I love second chance romance, and I feel like every one of her books has that. So Wish You Were Here. I'm trying not to get it mixed up with the current one I'm reading. So Charlotte is the main character, and she's basically one of those characters that just is like adrift. Like she doesn't know what she wants to do in life, which was pretty relatable to me like a couple of years ago. I probably would have totally related to Charlotte, but anyways, Charlotte can't really figure out what she wants to do. She was like jumping from like, should I be a hairdresser? Should I be a real estate agent? And currently she's working at just a diner with one of her best friends that she's roommates with, and she really just can't figure out her shit, and she can't find a guy that's nice. She keeps ending up with guys who basically are just a revolving door kind of guy. Anyways, one night she completely just isn't herself, and she is out with her friend getting drunk, and on their way home, this guy with Chinese food, her drunk friend was like, hey, can I have some Chinese food? And that's where she meets Adam. And Adam is just like free-spirited, live in the moment, kind of fun dude that she has a whim with that night with him. And he's just so fun. He's like, we only live once, let's freaking go. And they have she has like the best night of her life with him that night. So it was like an instant connection. Like they both just like were instantly drawn to each other. But then it was only one night. 6 months later, she still can't stop thinking about him, even though now she's with another guy that is pretty serious. Like he's a pretty sweet guy, but it's not the same as Adam. And I won't give it away, but she ends up talking to Adam again. We figure out why he went missing for 6 months. It goes from there. Again, very cute, but also I will warn, a bit cheesy. There were times when Adam, I was like, dude, you're being a bit too forthcoming, like a bit kind of creepy, like a little love bomby. But also once you figure out why, you're like, okay, I kind of get it. I kind of understand. It's kind of cute. And then the other guy she meets, I think his name is Seth. I think it was Seth. Prove me if I'm pretty sure it's Seth. Anyways, the other guy she meets, Seth, is like classic, like baseball hunky chunky, and they have a really cute romance as well, but it just doesn't feel like Adam until after near the end, and then you're like, okay, he kind of does feel like Adam. I don't know, I don't want to give it away, but it is really cute novel. I do understand why some people don't love it because it can be a little bit cringy. It has a lot of instant love feel to it, like full throttle instant love feel. You know when there's like instant love where the characters have a spark instantly, like they look at each other and they're like, oof, something hits me differently with you. But then they like kind of question it and don't like fall into it that much. Well, this book is like full throttle instant love. Like they have that instant connection and then they're like, I love you, like right away. You're like, whoa, okay sis, like hold off a little bit. Like, I know you feel this instant connection, but like, let's not express it right away. But this novel is a little bit like that. So I can see why it turns people off a little bit because it is so full throttle, but trust me, you have to keep reading. Like, you have to just keep going and it will all make sense. Don't get turned off by the first couple chapters. I swear to you, once you get to like chapter 5, you will understand, okay? You will understand and your heart will be torn out of you and you might cry. And that's how powerful this book is. So I love Renee Carlino and I will be reading all of her books. That's all of the books I read in July. I was just in such a good reading month. I cannot even, like, I read so many fun things. Romance, thriller, I want to call it self-help, self-journey, so many different genres. Such a good month. I loved it. So here goes to August, that it's just as good as July, but thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!